Carl Jung, the great psychologist, once said that human beings live in two worlds: the world of light, where we showcase our persona, and the world of darkness, where the truths we deny are hidden. The narcissist is a prime example of someone ruled by their own shadow. They do not care about truth, nor do they care about reason. What they seek is control and emotional reaction from you. Every argument with them is never truly about finding truth, but rather a stage where they play the victim, the winner, or the one in control. And this is why arguing with a narcissist almost always ends with your exhaustion. They know your weaknesses, they turn reality into a slippery arena, and if you step onto it, you are almost certain to lose. But Jung gives us another perspective. You don't need to fight on their stage. All you need to do is recognize the psychological game, expose the shadow that controls them, and remain grounded within yourself. In today's video, we will decode the narcissist's behavior through the lens of Carl Jung. And most importantly, I will share with you practical ways to defeat them in any argument without ever having to argue. You will discover why silence can sometimes be more powerful than 1,000 replies, and how simple reflective responses can crack their confident mask instantly. Stay until the end of the video, because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you perceive and deal with a narcissist. You will no longer be the powerless one in meaningless debates. And this very understanding will grant you the strongest weapon of all: freedom and peace of mind. Part 1. When a dog loves better than a narcissist. Have you ever noticed this heartbreaking paradox? A dog, an animal that cannot speak, has no moral education, no degrees, no social status, can sense and share your emotions more deeply than a human being who claims to be superior, special, or above the ordinary. Narcissists believe that coldness, that indifference to the suffering of others, is a form of strength. But as Carl Jung pointed out, it is precisely the parts of ourselves that we reject the shadow that rule our lives the most. And for the narcissist, that shadow is the complete absence of empathy. When you tell them even a dog knows how to love better than you, you are not simply insulting them. You are unconsciously pointing to a hole in their soul they work desperately to hide. The truth that they are not evolved or above anyone. In fact, they have been surpassed by creatures who live by the pure instinct of love. A dog will wag its tail when you come home, sit beside you on your saddest days, and stay loyal even when you have nothing to give. But a narcissist is different. They only appear when they can extract something from you. Your energy, your attention, or the emotional supply that fills the empty abyss inside them. What makes this statement so painful for them is not the insult it is that it touches their most primal shame, their inability to form genuine human connection. Jung called this an inner degeneration, when the ego becomes separated from the soul and a person loses their humanity, leaving only a hollow shell. This is what they fear most: being seen for what they truly are. Instead of raging or reacting the way they want you to, you simply hold up a mirror. That mirror reflects the truth. Indifference does not make them stronger. It makes them a poorer version of themselves. While they believe coldness elevates them above feelings, you show them the reality. Without empathy, they are actually less human than the creatures they look down on. This is not about humiliating them. It is about reminding yourself, empathy is a strength, not a weakness. And if even a dog can love, then you as a human being with a soul and awareness deserve infinitely more than someone who only knows how to take and never give back. Part 2. When a child handles disappointment better than a narcissist. If you've ever watched a 5-year-old being told no, you'll notice something fascinating. At first, the child may burst into tears, throw a tantrum, even roll on the floor. But within minutes, once comforted by their parents or distracted by a new game, they quickly forget and return to laughter. The child may not yet have full emotional regulation, but at least they know how to adapt, how to learn from disappointment, and how to grow. The narcissist, by contrast, remains stuck in rejection, as though it were a mortal wound. Carl Jung once said, "What is repressed in the unconscious returns as fate." In this case, what is repressed is the fear of abandonment, of not being chosen, of having their worth denied. Each time they are rejected, that shadow rises up, causing them to overreact like a child who never grew up. But unlike children who cry, then move on to play, the narcissist rages, retaliates, and does everything possible to tear down the one who made them feel not enough. When you compare them to a 5-year-old and say, even a child handles disappointment better than you are exposing the truth they dread most. Their emotional development stopped long ago. They may be physically mature, professionally successful, even socially skilled, but inside they remain a crying child, demanding, dependent, and unable to self-soothe. This explains why so many people feel bewildered after arguing with a narcissist. You think you're speaking with an adult, but the reaction you receive is no different than a childish tantrum. Jung called this arrested development, a psyche stuck in place, replaying the same loop of denial, defensiveness, and lashing out at anyone who makes them feel small. And this is where your strength lies. When you recognize that they are nothing more than a child trapped in an adult body, you stop being pulled into the cycle of arguments. You see clearly. The problem is not you, it's them. They are not endowed with some superpower as they claim. They simply never grew up emotionally. Instead of begging for their approval or trying to prove your worth, you can simply smile and walk away carrying your peace with you. And this truth, once revealed, becomes the first crack in the mask of arrogance they worked so hard to build. Part 3. When you pity the narcissist's distorted beliefs. There is one response that unsettles a narcissist more than anger: pity. Instead of raging, debating, or trying to prove them wrong, you look at them with quiet compassion and say, "How sad, do you really believe that?" In that moment, the power dynamic of the conversation shifts entirely. Carl Jung emphasized that every human being creates a story to cover their shadow, the weak, shameful parts of themselves they cannot face. For the narcissist, this story is built on lies, distortions, or repeated justifications until they begin to believe it as reality. When you respond with pity, you refuse to step into the trap of argument. Instead, you reveal the truth. Their beliefs are illusions, a fragile shell masking deep fears. What wounds them is not that you call them a liar directly, but that you stand at a higher level of awareness. You are like someone awake, watching another still lost in a dream, and you offer only a sorrowful smile at their delusion. For the narcissist, this is a devastating blow to the ego, because it shatters the illusion that they are in control of the narrative. Jung once wrote, "Man does not become conscious of the absurdity of himself until it is mirrored from without." When you pity their distorted beliefs, you become that mirror, showing them they are merely lulling themselves with a false story. Picture this. While they are passionately justifying deceit, betrayal, or irresponsibility, you don't condemn, you don't argue, you don't build a case. Just one simple, gentle question, "Do you really believe that?" is enough to make their entire false reality tremble, because deep down they know you've seen through it. This kind of pity is not weakness. It is a quiet strength. It declares that you are no longer trapped in their twisted logic. You are no longer a character in the play they direct. Instead, you've stepped outside, sitting in the audience, watching them like an actor cast in the wrong role. And it is precisely this shift from being pulled in to becoming the awakened observer that becomes the weapon a narcissist cannot bear. Part 4. When the victim mask slips off. One of the roles narcissists play most skillfully is that of the victim. They cleverly cast themselves as the hurt one, the misunderstood one, the abandoned one, so that you, with your natural empathy, will feel guilty, soften, and come back to comfort them. It's a calculated strategy because it directly exploits the goodness in human nature. Carl Jung called these disguises persona, the mask we wear to survive in society. But for the narcissist, the mask is not only for protection, it becomes their tool of manipulation. They play the victim so convincingly that even they start to believe their own script. And when you calmly say, "You're really holding on to this victim role, aren't you?" you are not just refusing to take part in their play, You are pointing out that the entire identity they built is nothing more than a cheap performance. This is dangerous for them, because it strikes directly at the shadow, the emptiness they carry. If the mask is pulled off, they are forced to confront a terrifying truth. Without a role to play, they have nothing left to cling to. That fear of exposure is the root of the rage they keep hidden. Imagine this. You don't need to shout. You don't need to prove your case with logic. Just one gentle line of exposure is enough to throw them off balance, because it makes them realize you no longer believe in the drama they worked so hard to stage. As Jung said, the shadow that we do not confront will control us from behind. Here, you shine a light on that shadow, stripping away their usual power. The narcissist wants you to react, get angry, defend yourself, or start explaining. But when you simply sigh and say, "You're still playing the victim," you drain their fuel. With no one to pity them, no one to act as an audience, the performance collapses into meaninglessness. And this is the most devastating blow, because it doesn't just deny their story, it denies the false self they've built their entire identity around. The key is this. You don't say it to attack. You say it to remind yourself that you are awake. You are no longer a supporting character in someone else's play. You've chosen to step outside, to observe, and to expose the truth. They are not a victim. They are simply someone exploiting the mask of victimhood to manipulate the world around them. Part 5. When pity strips them of all power. There is one sentence that seems simple, yet cuts a narcissist deeper than 1,000 blades. It must be exhausting to live like you, because deep down they know it's true. The narcissist lives in an endless cycle, building up the perfect mask, feeding off others for supply, and hiding their inner emptiness behind hollow victories. But to maintain that facade, they burn through enormous amounts of psychic energy. They must always be alert, always in control, always performing, always pretending. Carl Jung described this as a life dominated by the persona, a public self, crafted to deal with the world, but one that swallows the true soul within. When you speak those words, you are not just expressing pity, you are showing them you see through the facade. You are not angry, not resisting, but looking at them with compassion for a life weighed down by its own burdens. This robs them of their greatest weapon, the ability to provoke an emotional explosion in you. Instead, you stand firm, observing, letting them realize that they are the most pitiful person in the room. This strikes straight into their shadow, the hidden shame that their life is not happy, not fulfilled, no matter how loudly they pretend. In Jungian terms, when the shadow is brought to light, it creates crisis, because the truth can no longer be denied. And here the truth is this: living as a narcissist is not glory, it is a lifelong prison sentence of loneliness and exhaustion. Think about it. They may laugh loudly in public, wear their mask of confidence, and seem untouchable. But at night, when the audience is gone, they are left alone with nothing but emptiness, anxiety, and fatigue. When you say, "It must be exhausting to live like you," you are pressing directly on that wound. You are not arguing, not condemning, but reflecting the reality that their entire life is a game with no reward. And this frees you, because once you see them as pitiful rather than powerful, you can no longer be pulled into their cycle of control. You can look at them as someone battling their own darkness, while you choose to walk toward the light where true peace lives. When you stop arguing, you've already won. As we've seen, arguing with a narcissist will never lead you to truth, because truth was never their concern. What they crave is your reaction, your submission, and the fragile illusion of control their mask provides. You could bring stacks of evidence, razor-sharp logic, or infinite patience, yet in the end all you will receive is a distorted version of reality. And that is the very trap they've set for you. Carl Jung once said, "He who looks outside dreams, he who looks inside awakens." Your true power does not lie in defeating them on the battlefield of debate, but in refusing to step onto that battlefield at all. When you choose silence, when you reflect their game with simple yet piercing words, when you remain anchored in your peace, that is the moment you have already won. Because nothing terrifies a narcissist more than the truth that you are no longer their puppet reacting on command. What we've shared today is not a set of tricks for revenge, but a reminder. You have the right to protect your mental freedom. You have the right to refuse to let that darkness overshadow your light. Jung would call this the moment you confront and transcend the shadow, not only theirs, but your own. The fear of being misunderstood, the obsession with proving yourself, and the weakness of needing validation. And when you step out of that meaningless war, you not only safeguard yourself, you also deliver a powerful message. I see through it. I'm no longer playing this game. That is true liberation. If today's message has given you strength, clarity, and peace, remember this is only the beginning. This channel will continue to shine a light on narcissistic behavior through the lens of Carl Jung and give you the spiritual tools to heal and grow. So don't forget to hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an important lesson. Stay connected, walk this path with us, and together let's build a community of understanding, awakening, and freedom. And always remember, you don't need to argue with a narcissist to defeat them. The moment you choose to live true to yourself, to walk in the light of truth, the darkness disappears on its own.